Over the years, I found that it's kind of difficult at times to look back at previous League of Legends events and think about what it was that really distinguished them, what it was that defined them and the teams that played at those various events. So, for instance, pretty much ever since the LCS era began, it's been kind of difficult and easy to get lost in the, what's the difference between the 2015 season and the 2017 season? What was LCS in North America like in 2014 summer split compared to the 2015 summer split? And what kind of storylines and things were that happened? It can be very easy if that was maybe your first time experiencing League of Legends esports, but as the years pile up, it's very difficult to continue going into events and thinking about, okay, what's going to be the defining storylines and the defining moments of this upcoming event. Well, today, MSI, not Worlds, the Midseason Invitational just began its first day of group stage of the main event. The group stage of the main event as play-ins have just concluded a couple of days ago, and I'm making a video here to explain the three biggest storylines that are likely going to end up defining this main event and the things that you should be paying attention to and looking for when you're going and watching the games yourselves. There's a number of exciting things that are going on, specifically with the top four teams, or what looks to be the top four teams. Flash Wolves, they're a bit of a wild card here, not a wild card as in they're from a wild card region, but they could end up having a lot of success, or they could have a lot of disappointing play as they have a fairly new roster. But for the seemingly top four teams, Invictus Gaming, SK Telecom, G2, and Team Liquid, there's a lot of exciting things going on, but I'm going to focus on the three biggest storylines that you should be paying attention to, the first of which being the solo lanes. Now, there's a lot of very talented superstar AD carries and junglers here. Of course, Teddy is looking like an insanely good AD carry, maybe the best in the world. There's still Doublelift, of course, at this event, who's a superstar in his own right. But what's likely going to end up defining and separating these teams at the top is the solo lane play. We're starting off with Invictus Gaming, who have two of the best solo laners in the game. The Shy might be the best player in the world right now. He is an insane top laner that a lot of people are actually comparing him right now to Faker in 2013. He seems to be the next crazy superstar that seems so far ahead of everyone else in his role, who's making all these flashy plays. He already has one world championship under his belt, and he could really have a dynasty ahead of him, if he stays on Invictus Gaming, or if he ends up going somewhere else. He could end up really continuing to win world championships, to develop into one of the best players in the world, if he isn't already the best player in the world right now. He's also in a meta that's really favoring him. Right now we have a carry top lane meta, and he's able to, he's already had some insane Akali play in the group stage just from day one that I'm sure you've seen a few highlights from. And it's going to be really interesting to see how he, probably solidifies himself as the best top laner in the world right now. And again, possibly the best player in the world right now as Invictus Gaming move on. Rookie also, Rookie is in a similar boat. He's someone that a lot of people are touting as, again, a Faker-like prodigy who's, coming into his own and has so much talent and success that he's already had, again, winning a world championship with Invictus Gaming in 2018, that he still has so much further to go, although he has faltered a little bit. I think people have been saying he's like the maybe second to fourth best mid laner in the LPL right now in the Chinese league from the spring split. So maybe he's been faltering a little bit, and it will be interesting to see how he ends up holding up against the international competition right now, most notably against SKT. SKT is probably considered the second best team at this international event representing Korea, and their two solo laners are also superstars. They obviously have Faker in the mid lane, who has a tremendous legacy. He's coming off a very bad 2018. They had a lot of success with this SKT roster in the spring split of LCK in 2019, but throughout all of 2018, SKT was very disappointing and had a lot of issues to work through that they ended up rebuilding their entire roster. So a lot of people are saying this year is the Faker redemption arc, where this is his chance to see if he can come back and then go reclaim the world title for Korea. That might end up happening, or it might not, but this event will be a good way to see, can he still stack up and prove that he's the best mid laner in the world, and it isn't Rookie or some other mid that's taken that title from him. top lane is very interesting for SKT because if you weren't aware somehow, top lane, SKT went out and got Khan. Now, Khan was seemingly the best top in the world a few years ago, a couple years ago, maybe just a year ago. He was playing with Longzhu Gaming when they ended up dethroning SK Telecom as the best team in Korea for a brief period, where they gave SKT their first loss in the finals of an LCK. He ended up winning an LCK, I think winning 2 LCKs with Longzhu, who then turned into Kingzone Dragon X. But he has had a little bit of issues. He's had some issues where he seemingly choked at international events. He's had some issues with previously, not succeeding at Worlds with Longzhu, not succeeding more recently with Kingzone Dragon X when he was on that team. And ever since he joined SKT, he is still an amazing player, and there's a reason that SKT went out and acquired him. But he's also had a lot of issues. He got solo killed by Rascal when he was playing up against Kingzone Dragon X. He got solo killed by his replacement, top lane 1 versus 1, when he was playing Jace, which is like the champion he's known for. I mean, there are some issues in his gameplay, and personally speaking, I feel like he's in a bit of a slump, which is very weird because he is also a carry top laner. I mean, a lot of the champions that he's known for doing so well with are super meta right now, and he should be having a lot of success on this current patch, but he's not. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can rise to the occasion and be the top laner that SKT needs him to be if they're going to beat the likes of Invictus Gaming, or if he's going to prove to be a weak point for them that causes them to maybe end up losing this MSI and coming in second or tied third and fourth. So we'll have to see how things end up panning out there. On top of that, the Western teams also have some very interesting solo lanes. Firstly, you have G2, of course. G2 has Wonder in the top lane, who has, a lot of hype surrounding him, and a lot of people are saying that he might be the best top in the West right now. That it's going to be interesting to see how he's able to stack up against the international competition. Today in day 1, he was able to do very well against Khan and exploit a lot of the weaknesses that Khan had when G2 was able to, spoiler alert, beat SK Telecom in their first game at least. They still have one more game to play against each other. But similarly, he ended up having a very poor performance up against the Shy, where he ended up picking Vayne into Shy's Akali, which Akali was able to just wipe the floor with him after he hit level 6, even though he got a lot of camp in the early game to try and help him out. So it's going to be curious to see if he's able to succeed and step up similarly against these other top lane carry style champions, and is he going to be able to beat them and exploit their weaknesses, or is he going to end up feeding them and giving them crazy KDAs on the carries that they end up playing? And then of course mid lane they have Caps, who has had a tumultuous journey where, previously he really folded in the 2018 World Finals when he was previously on Fnatic. They made it to the finals of 2018 Worlds, and unfortunately he really kind of folded under the pressure against Rookie 1 versus 1. Now, similarly, again, G2 today has already played SKT once, and they've also played against Invictus Gaming, and he had a lot of success. G2 in general had a lot of success and played very confidently when they ended up beating Faker and SK Telecom, but he also kind of had some issues and seemingly folded a little bit against Rookie. He picked a very passive Vladimir against Rookie, who I believe played Zoe, where he could have gone for a more aggressive pick. People have been talking a little bit about, he could have gone for Zed if he wanted to really take the fight to him and feel confident in his ability to go aggressive and make something happen, but instead, he picked a Vladimir that had a very, Vladimir in general has a very passive early game, very passive game where he just kind of sits back and farms until the hyper late game. And there were a few very big flubs where Caps seemingly folded under pressure, which was very interesting to see. And we're going to have to see similarly, can they handle G2 in general? Can they handle the pressure of playing on the international stage? And then lastly, you have Team Liquid, who a lot of people aren't expecting to do very well for reasons we're going to get into in point number 2. But they also have some very interesting solo lanes where they recently went out and got Jensen, who has been playing very well himself mid lane. He's actually been playing very confidently, and he's been playing some of the flashy champions like Akali recently that some people are thinking people are going to have to start banning against Liquid. If they end up having to ban Akali against Liquid, then that's going to free up some picks, specifically for Core JJ in the bot lane playing support. If he's able to get champions like Braum and Tom Kench that he's super good with, people are saying he might be the best support in the world when he gets those specific champions. If they're freeing up those bans against those characters, because because Jensen is such a threat on Akali, then that's going to be a really impressive and exciting thing to see, where it's going to give a little bit more of a dynamic to Team Liquid's composition. If teams don't respect the Akali, then will Jensen be able to rise up and succeed on Akali? Today, Team Liquid played against Flash Wolves and Fongfu Buffalo, but will Jensen be able to have that same sort of confidence and success when playing Akali into better teams, into better mid laners like the Rookie and Faker and Caps of the world? We're going to have to wait and see, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that dynamic works out. And then finally, Impact top lane for Team Liquid. He's kind of the he's kind of the runt of the litter here. He's someone that has traditionally been a lot more passive of a top laner. He hasn't been this crazy carry top laner. He has played some champions like Gangplank, where he's able to, in the late game have a lot of success dealing damage and being a bit of a carry himself, but he's not the kind of guy to go super crazy aggressive and make these flashy plays that you're seeing from people like Khan and the Shy, and it's going to be interesting to see, can he hold up at the very least against all these other top laners that are out there, because there's a lot of talent in these two roles, and that's really where you should be paying the most attention, in my opinion, when these teams are playing against each other. Now, that's the first storyline you should be paying attention to. The second storyline kind of feeds into this a little bit, and that is the clash in play styles. Now, let me preface this by saying LS, the analyst and caster from Korea who also coaches BBQ Olivers, he is someone that I love. I love his analysis. I think he's a really smart dude. I love a lot of his stuff, and I root for BBQ. I'd love to see them make it into the LCK. But he has this habit, if you've ever paid attention to some of his analysis, of kind of viewing everything in like this perfect game strategy. I don't know what you would describe it, but he critiques teams very often as they're playing, just trying to think about every little detail that they're doing incorrectly and then pointing that out. It's one of the reasons why he's a pretty good coach, specifically for people that are trying to get better at solo queue. I've gotten coaching from him in the past, and he succeeds a lot when coaching individual players, particularly people that are trying to improve and just like improve at a lot of the basic mechanics of the League of Legends. So he has this habit of just like pointing out every little thing and in a perfect game theory world, exactly what will happen, making very confident statements about that. And so, for instance, a lot of people do this too. I mean, he's just maybe the best example. But for instance, Team Liquid should never win a game against any of the other three teams mentioned at this MSI. And the reason being is the different play styles that teams have. And this is what you should really be paying attention to for storyline number 2. There's 2 distinct play styles that the top top 4 teams have, 2 of them adopting 2 of the play styles each. The first play style is a very aggressive play style where you're trying to make crazy plays early on. This is what G2 and Invictus Gaming do. They have, what some people might call clown fiestas, where teams are, constantly looking for kills. They're constantly going for ganks. They're constantly seeing if they can make early game moves to get pressure, get turret platings now that turret platings have been added to League of Legends, which gives you a lot more gold in the early game if you're able to take down a turret. They're going for turret platings, going for early ganks, early kills, taking objectives like the Rift Herald and Dragon, and then trying to take an early lead and then snowball that to the end game. That's what G2 and Invictus Gaming do for the most part, if you want to oversimplify these strategies. And then on the opposite side, Team Liquid and SK Telecom have just the opposite strategy. They don't really want to do anything in the early game. They want to pick late game scaling champions. They want to pick Gangplank. They want to pick Azir. They want to pick characters that if the game goes to 40 minutes, then they win. They want to sit back and just have this passive play style and this passive strategy of just trying to farm up, trying to make it to late game, don't give the enemy too much stuff, and then eventually they will just out-team fight them, be able to outsplit them, and do stuff in the late game because they have scaled much harder than the enemy team has. The reason I say the Team Liquid shouldn't end up winning any games is because currently SKT play what Team Liquid do, but they do it generally better. They have better players that they kind of just have better players overall, if we're being honest, who are able to succeed much more at what they do. They die less, they make fewer mistakes. And in general, if Team Liquid go up against SK Telecom, SKT should be able to do what they do, but better. And then Team Liquid also have a lot of flaws in the early game that are exposed to that kind of G2 and Invictus Gaming strategy. So G2 and Invictus Gaming, when they go up against Team Liquid, they should be able to just crush Liquid by abusing the fact that Liquid are giving them opportunities to get kills in the early game, and then their play style will allow them to get those kills. They'll get those kills, they'll start taking turret platings, they'll take turrets, they'll get a big gold lead, and they should be able to snowball to win the game. So that's kind of the interesting thing about sports, though, is that in a perfect, theory crafting world, Team Liquid should never be able to win a game against any of the aforementioned 3 teams. But we don't live in a perfect world. People make mistakes all the time. Different things are going to happen in different situations, and there is certainly a possibility that Team Liquid's going to be able to beat G2, that they won't give up those early kills to them, that they'll be able to get to their late game and out teamfight people later on, and maybe they'll be able to do what SKT does, but do it better than SKT. You never really know what's going to happen in sports, which is what makes sports so fun and exciting. So anyway, to summarize, the really interesting thing here about storyline number 2 is that teams have very distinct strategies that define them very clearly. It should be very clear what teams are trying to do and how they're trying to get to their win condition, right? And it's going to be interesting to see, are things going to end up playing out the way that we predict them? Pretty much every analyst is saying, or should be saying, that, someone like Team Liquid's going to struggle. Someone like SKT probably won't be able to deal with the G2 and Invictus Gaming stuff. Maybe SKT will be able to win in a best of 5 if they go up against G2, but then Invictus Gaming look a little stronger. You could look at this MSI and predict things pretty accurately if things just end up panning out the way they do. But then seeing these strategies go up against each other and clash really hard, that's going to be interesting to see it, and it's going to be interesting to see, are things going to happen the way that everyone's predicting them, or are there going to be, things that we're not seeing right now that pop up specifically with these strategies. So that's something to pay attention to. And the final note here that I think is kind of interesting is the coaching. The third storyline you should be paying attention to is who can make adjustments. Specifically, SK Telecom is a good example of this. SKT is a team that Koreans in general, but especially SKT, they've had plenty of instances where they've dropped games in group stages in previous worlds and stuff, but their coaching for SKT, it's K-Coma, their coaching is able to figure out what's going on, what's going wrong, and then better prepare the team for a later on, best of 5 in a bracket, or, in the further group stage games that end up coming up. We've already seen SKT drop a game to G2, and they're probably looking like underdogs against Invictus Gaming, where, again, they're going up against strategies that are really foreign to them. There aren't too many teams. There are some teams like Griffin, but there aren't too many teams that play this kind of crazy, hyper-aggressive playstyle in the LCK, so they're going to be up against these strategies that they have not seen a lot of before in the past. And seeing how they adjust as the event goes on is going to be particularly interesting, because this is only MSI, it's not Worlds, which means that likely, again, as long as Flash Wolves doesn't do anything insane, these are going to be the 4 teams that make it out of the group stage. And if they do end up making it out of the group stage, that gives them a lot of time to play against each other, see how to deal with all these strategies and whatnot. And then they get at least one best of 5 when they make it into the bracket. And then seeing how these coaches on all these different teams end up adapting to the play styles that they haven't seen a lot of. How Invictus Gaming adapt to SKT if they end up having success with their strategy of dragging things out late, how Team Liquid are going to be able to, hopefully, if you're a Team Liquid fan, how they'll hopefully be able to play passively enough and not make too many mistakes in the early game that allows them to get to their crazy endgame fantasy, having really strong, really strong play that's not riddled with as many mistakes as we've seen in play-ins. And then, again, G2 also, they're a good example of someone that should, they're in a tough spot, because not only do they want to make sure that they're playing with enough pace and enough aggression against SKT to allow them to get their early 20, 26-minute wins when playing against Team Liquid and SKT and everything, but they also have to adapt to Invictus Gaming when they play against them. okay, we're going up against the same strategy, but against players who are probably better than us, players that are insanely talented and have a lot of crazy, exciting hype around them. How are they going to be able to deal with that? And how is the coaching staff of each team going to be able to rally their players around, deal with the different strategies, and deal with everything as the game goes on? Because again, they're going to have a lot of games in group stage and then essentially a guaranteed best of 5, at least one. How are they going to be able to deal with everything as stuff goes on? But anyway, that's really what you should be paying attention to. Keep an eye out for it at this MSI. I hope you guys are having fun watching it. I certainly am myself, even just one day after the groups, or day one of groups. After day one of groups, it's been a whole lot of fun to pay attention to. I hope you're enjoying it as well. And yeah, I'll see you guys probably with some post-MSI analysis later on, and of course some future videos throughout the week. But until next time, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.